2024. Open the meeting at 7:30. May we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have roll call, please?
Mr. Carpenter,
Here.
Mr. Fitzer,
Here.
Mr. Colbert, Mr. Kucera,
Here.
Mr. Nushai,
Here.
Ms. Redmond, Mr. Scott,
Here.
Mr. Solomon,
Here.
Mr. Tinlin. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any changes they'd like to make in tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I will approve the agenda as it stands. And we'll go on to approval of the regular meeting minutes from April 9th, 2024. That would be our last proper meeting.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from April 9th, 2024.
Second.
Motion support. Anybody have any changes, problems with it? Seeing none, may I have roll call, please?
Mr. Fitzer,
Yes.
Mr. Kucera,
Yes.
Mr. Nushai,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Solomon,
Yes.
Mr. Tinlin,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 6 is public discussion, items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, I will then close public discussion. And we'll move on to agenda item number 7, which is a site plan review for 502 South Main Street.
Evening, everybody. I was sick all last week, and I'm still kind of getting over it, so I will try to get through this with minimal coughing. Thanks for being here tonight. So yes, we're looking at the old CNC bump shop building. We did look at it at the last meeting, for those of you who are here. And it was tabled just to allow the applicant to provide some additional information. So there's a couple parcels here. There's about 8,000 square feet all told. Zone BRD1 Business Renewal District. Site's developed with a 4,360 square foot building, which of course is the former CNC bump shop. Various parking and driveway areas. That parking in the back is accessed from the alley off Tacoma Street. There are 5 parallel parking spaces along Main that are going to be restriped as part of this project. I'll skip past the surrounding properties because it was discussed last time. Get right into the dimensional standards. The one item there where I didn't see a label on the plan was the distance from the building to the alley. The alley itself is 20 feet wide. So we have a sense of how far things are from the neighboring properties, but that distance between the building and the alley, I would like to see that on the plan. Building's being renovated to accommodate 3 retail and/or office uses. We did get most of the site data that we were asking for last time, and I've obviously taken everything that was in the list out last time out to reflect that. Wanted to talk a little bit about handling existing nonconformities. The site does have some, as noted throughout the letter. When an improvement is proposed to a site with a bunch of existing nonconformity, our goal is always to bring the site further into compliance to the extent practical. On a site like this, it's generally necessary to strike a balance between bringing items into compliance and accepting certain nonconformities as they are, or reductions in existing nonconformities. But they might not necessarily go all the way away. Nonconformities are summarized here. Not a screen wall. Currently, the parking lot's not fully paved or striped, and parking area doesn't meet the ordinance requirements as a result. When we look at the parking, We find that 15 spaces are required for the building that's there and the prospective uses that might be going into it. Looking at parking that's available on the site, on the curb, out front, we find that 16 parking spaces are available on site or in the immediate vicinity. There are also other on-street parking spaces that are not very far away. So it does seem like we're getting there on the parking. There is definitely not space on the site to fit all 15 parking spaces on the site itself.
Can you confirm, real quick, the 16 spaces you said were provided? Are you including the 5 out front?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's pretty much the only way the site can get there is with the public parking.
And are you including I know in the letter, there was noted 3 spots on the street.
North side,
Dakota?
yeah.
Are those included or not?
They are included in that count, yes.
And that's down a residential street, right?
That's on the Tacoma, yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me. Parking layout and design, that, not much has changed on that since last time. They kind of did some reconfiguration to get the handicap spot into a better space. There's going to be a little bit of overlap from the spaces that are diagonal along the back of the building into that 20-foot alley. The site really doesn't have any landscaping right now. There were areas that kind of looked like lawn, but they were actually old driveways that had just sort of like melted away over time. So they are taking some of that old pavement out. They're putting in a little kind of plaza up front with some garden beds and planter boxes. There is going to be a tree up front. They're really, I meing, they're adding planting where there really is none right now. We looked at the screen wall. We talked about this a fair amount last time. So it would have to be across the alley. The neighboring resident has a row of arborvitae over there. The screen wall would only be like a teeny tiny little stretch of wall because of where the neighbor's driveway gets into the garage, how far back it would have to be set in order not to block the view coming out of the alleyway. It really doesn't appear particularly practical to put one there. He did indicate last time that he'd be willing to work with the neighbor to beef up the planting back there if the neighbor found it to be necessary. They're showing loading occurring in the public alley. We have some design specifications in the BRD1 district. I called out a couple of standards that are particularly relevant to this site, and one of those being that we do require screening of rooftop equipment, and there is a parapet here that is going to accomplish that. They'll obviously have to apply for signage separately. They do have some pedestrian circulation on the site. They've noted on the plan that they're going to be doing decorative building-mounted lighting, and they're going to meet city requirements. We will ultimately need to receive cut sheets of any light fixtures in order to ensure that they're meeting the standards of Section 15.8, particularly with regard to the cutoff requirements. Trash enclosure was a topic of conversation last time. They actually provided a written agreement with the car place a couple doors down, Bayless, to use their dumpster, which, as was noted last time, is in the alley. We went back and we kind of tried to figure out exactly like what the history on that was. Bayless occupied half the alley as though the alley had been vacated back sometime before 1963. So it's been like that for a really long time. Records from that time are, I mean, they are what they are from the 50s and 60s. which is to say not much exists. So we don't know if there was actually an intent to vacate that part of the alley and it just never got recorded or something, or what happened, but everybody, including the residential neighbor and the southern part of that alley, has been behaving since the early 60s like the alley is vacated. At a stretch, could the city come in and decide that they want to use that alley again at some point in the future? Strictly speaking, yes. It would be nice to get some sort of resolution to that situation at some point, even if it just meant formally vacating and recording the vacation. But for right now, I mean, this is a situation that has persisted for longer than many of us have been alive, and I think that given the history, we're comfortable with them using the existing dumpster. The enclosure is on the commercial side of the alley as well, so it's actually 10 feet away from neighboring properties. Any questions for me? The applicant is here to speak for himself.
I can start with a couple questions.
Sure.
It's said, I believe, in the packet that there was an agreement on that dumpster, but nothing was provided in the packet. Is it a miss, or did you guys receive that in terms of the administration?
I know I've got a copy of it that was sent to me.
Yeah, that should have been included in the packet.
Okay.
I'll pull it up and I'll read it for the record for everyone.
Okay. And then the other one was rooftop screening. I know it mentioned somewhere in there it's a requirement to
Yeah.
get all that screened. I don't see anything in the packet, though.
Right, they have an illustration of the facade that shows how the parapet comes up above the roof.
So that's going to be the
And
screening?
Exactly,
Okay.
that will be the screening. So, and it's tall enough to handle any units that they're gonna put up there. If they do happen to put something up there in a strange location, they would have to go ahead and screen around that.
Okay, thank you.
If we decide to approve this, there's a note here from Anderson, AEW, excuse me. Site plan shows 3 existing parallel parking spaces along Nakota Street. Please note there are no dedicated parking spaces on Nakota Street. These spaces cannot be included in the applicant's parking provide calculations. Is there a way that we're going to get around that?
Well, so what he's noting there is that on the site plan, the applicant included those as like spaces that they're providing. Technically, they're not spaces that are providing because they're not on the property.
Right.
They're just spaces that are available to serve this site.
They cannot be reserved for this building only. They're
Exactly.
public parking spaces.
Exactly. Yeah. And Mike is making sure that that's clear in his letter that they're not going to be reserved spaces or for the exclusive use of this property.
Yeah, okay, so you don't have a problem with that, we can,
No, I don't have an issue with it. They're going to be, they're going to be right there, so most likely they're going to be used by people who are patronizing this site.
yeah, I don't have any problem with the dumpster. When I talked to Troy, and his worst case is, they might have to get a slightly larger dumpster, but aside from that, he thinks they'll handle it.
Yep.
He's only afraid that you're going to put a place in there serving donuts, and he's going to gain some weight, so that's his major complaint. Aside from that, rooftop screening, that's a tall building. I don't know if there's anything, are you planning to put things on the rooftop, air conditioning, or?
2
Out of here,
rooftop
Ryan. You
units
can
behind. Commission, good evening. Yeah, 2 rooftop units, a 3-ton and a 4-ton behind the parapet is what our current plans are, because we don't have space to put them outside.
Right, so they won't be visible from Main Street or the side streets?
That's the goal, correct.
They're all blocked up.
Yep.
Okay. And the alley wall, no practical use of doing that. It has to be used for that lady to get in and out of her garage.
It would probably be to her detriment if we put that up.
Right, it caused more of a problem than it would ignoring that one, yeah.
Exactly.
I have no further problems. Anybody else?
I do.
Sure.
On the letter that our planners provided, it's for you, I'm sorry. It says that the applicant has demonstrated that there is or will be in place a plan for off-site parking for employees, staff, or independent contractors. What does that mean?
That's part of utilizing the public parallel parking that's along Main Street for any individuals that work on the site, and that we cannot provide, parking for. If there's not enough parking, for instance, the main space that you see off of Main Street is designed for a bakery, a donut shop, coffee house. And if they have, let's say, 5 employees, we're likely those employees are going to have to park, not on site, so to move that congestion away from the building.
Okay, so this calculation then becomes smaller with parking spots that you have, by definition.
From a
Because you-
technical basis, if you're talking about dedicated parking for the building, no, then we can have everyone park on site and then just use what's around the building. I have no problem with that, because the street parking will be utilized nonetheless by patrons coming to customers. But I was using that as an example for the customers not to have the congestion at the building. That was
I
the,
see.
so. And so my own business will be in one of the spaces. And so if me and an employee are parking, we're only going to use 2 spaces in the back. That's just all we have, because it's me and one other person. But the goal is, if we lease out the 3rd space, they'll have 2 or 3 spaces next to the handicap space along the alley. And then the bakery would have to utilize, some of the 5 up front or down along Main, yeah. Just to add to that, they're currently not being used by any means whatsoever now. They're always, Troy has a space, or Barb's Pasties has her space, but, so they're available, and hopefully not gonna be a detriment or create more congestion than is necessary. And we're cognizant of that.
On that note, because I kind of thought about the same thing, right? So if you have employees parking and you at least have discussed a bakery as one potential, I'm not sure if there's a potential for any other retail space to be, customers coming in and out as well. So, yeah, I mean, there's limitations for sure in this area, but it seemed like just north of it, I don't know if it's a dental office or whatever, there's a large parking lot. Have you thought about, at least for your employees, being able to come to agreement with them?
Absolutely, and it's something that, as this progresses and evolves, I would love to have, because I'm there all the time now.
It seems like
and
a
they-
large underutilized lot.
Definitely, and maybe, hey, the back few spots of that lot, I think should be a reasonable situation, even if it's a nominal fee, but it seems like everyone is pretty reasonable in that area. I don't think they'd have a problem with it. And I also spoke 2 doors down to the north. I think they're doing some facade work on that building. His name is, is it Mahmoud? I don't know his name. He also volunteered, hey, if you ever need parking, we can have the discussion. I haven't reached out to him, but it's also another idea we could work through, so that would be awesome. Any other questions you have for me or use?
With respect to parking, I mean, I'm seeing the 9-foot and even 8-foot width parking spaces, which is relatively narrow, and so I can see that you're trying to squeeze in parking as much as you can. One thing I saw on your site plan, and also noted by our city engineer AEW, with respect to your diagonal parking, right as soon as you enter Nakota.
Yeah.
So if you park into that diagonal parking spaces and patrons back up, they're now entering into a potential safety concern, backing up into sidewalk or into Nakota Street itself. Once they back up, they're either backing up all the way into Nakota before they can carry on, or they're backing up just a little bit and then they're stuck kind of in your parking lot. How did you envision circulation in this area?
Limited, first and foremost. There's going to be limited circulation for that area. I think that those 3 spaces along the back alley are going to be dedicated for use of the the back of the building space, which will be a loft office. Ideally, not heavy use. So in terms of the ingress and egress, I think that if I have some wayfinding signs, for instance, pull all the way up, turn around before you leave, or at the sidewalk, have some sort of, be aware, notice, something along those lines, I'm happy to do that. I think, frankly, who's ever parking there is gonna have to use the logic before they, throw their car in reverse to back out. But I envision some sort of cautionary sign to, if there's people on the sidewalk, they know like, okay, there could be a car backing up. So,
Okay. Yeah, that does concern me. Have you looked at or considered 90-degree parking stalls there?
the issue, if we do that, that originally we looked at was you'd be backing right up into and taking and using more of that alleyway.
Okay.
Was the issue, so it's kind of, the lesser evil, I guess. Yeah, please.
I just wonder if you angle them the other way, if maybe it would alleviate some of that concern, because then you're not backing onto the sidewalk, you're going the other direction.
Right, I suppose you could, but getting into that stall will be a little challenging.
Yeah.
but you
Right.
could potentially even back into it and then use the alleyway as a maneuvering area.
Right,
But it might, just from the circulation standpoint that you're talking about, it might be a better arrangement.
right. I would agree.
Happy to explore whatever is reasonable.
I'm not overly concerned with the lightings. I'm sure that we have engineering and administration look at that. Signage is something else that they'll take care of. Engineering, it says that the building has an existing 3/4-inch water service that was installed in 1926. Have you contacted DPW about that?
Definitely. They came out, well, they can't turn it on because there were freeze issues, but then we had the line checked by emergency drain and sewer, and they checked that, and it was copper, so it has been updated at some point in time.
Oh, okay.
So,
I got one more question. I apologize if we asked, I don't know if I asked this last time. Water detention, do you know?
so we're gonna meet with the engineering department, once we get through site plan review, and we're gonna look at, how, to best, make sure that we're not gonna create unnecessary, water. That's gonna be one of the things we have to tackle.
Okay, yeah,
So-
because you're not actually breaking into the concrete in the parking lot or anything like that. You're,
There is no concrete in any part, what do you mean breaking into the concrete?
in the parking area or anything around there, because I'm not sure what the current detention, if there is
No.
even anything available on that site.
Sure.
And it's mostly pavement, so I was just curious if you were looking at upgrading at any capacity.
Yeah, so, there are two storm, so there's two storm drains at the building. So I would, gutter any of the water to those logical spots. One of the storm drains is in the back where we're going to asphalt. And so we would then make sure that there's a grade towards the drain.
Thanks.
Sure.
Any further questions?
Cool.
Comment?
Just want to go back to Mr. Solomon's point. So my apologies for not including in that agreement. I'll just read it for the record and have it as part of the minutes as well. So it just states, this agreement is dated April 16th, 2024 by and between Bayless Tire and Auto Clinic and 502 South Main Associates. The parties agree that they will split the dumpster costs evenly once 502 South Main Street starts using the dumpster. 502 South Main Street will reimburse Bayless Tire and Auto Repair within 5 days when due, signed by both parties. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion or questions, I'd entertain a motion. Anyone?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the site plan for 502 South Main Street as presented.
Support.
Motion, support. Anybody had anything that I had to add
Just in
to it?
discussion, are there any contingencies for this approval, or is it as is? I don't think there was anything dramatically outstanding.
I don't see anything that's not going to be handled by administration and engineering. I think that's up to their.
Okay.
So if we just have a motion to approve, and I have support on it, if there's no further comment, I'll take a roll call, please.
Mr. Kucera,
Yes.
Mr. Nushai, Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Solomon,
Yes.
Mr. Tinlin,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzer.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to Clausen.
Hey, thank you, everyone. Am I allowed to say
Sure.
something? Sure.
Sure.
So, been working, my wife and I are putting everything we have into this, and I've been working with Nicholas and Joe on this for quite some time to get this to the finish line. I just want to say it's been a really nice welcome to work through this. It hasn't been too unreasonable. A few times we're scratching our heads how to get through some issues, but they've been really great to work with. So really excited to open business and get things rocking. I know the building's been vacant for quite some time, so looking to, every day someone's coming up and asking what's going on. So really excited to kind of be in the city and working and be here daily. So
Yeah.
excited.
So
Thank you.
Great addition. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're excited. Thanks.
Okay.
Will the wall need to go through a variance at this point?
No, it's waivable by the planning commission.
Okay.
Move on to agenda item number 8, which is the master plan discussion.
It was really just a note to say that we're going to be having a draft in time for the second May meeting, and we'll be doing draft review at that point, and then based on how much we want to change about the draft, we'll be looking at moving to a public open house after that, once the planning commission is satisfied with the draft.
Is there gonna be a special meeting or workshop,
That's what we're trying to do. The format should be like a workshop format, yeah.
including with the public?
Well, we'd like to get through one with the planning commission first
that's-
and then go to a public workshop.
Okay, thanks, that was my thought.
I mean, the public, of course, will be invited to come just as they are to any of our meetings.
And
but,
I didn't know, yeah, if you're inviting any other groups or anything for,
No, not specifically, no, yeah.
That's it? That's short. How about other business? Nothing on other business. How about a planner's report?
Also nothing on that.
Boy, all the way down to staff report and training opportunities.
All right, I've got a little bit, but still on the shorter side. So we've got a couple projects going on right now that are still going through engineering review, hoping to get those green lighted in the next few weeks, and then we can get some activity on some of these recent site plans that this body's approved. Another update that we have from the last one was Grand River got their final certificate of occupancy. Again, that temporary was just given due to some fire marshal questions in their kitchen that they were couple parts were back ordered and didn't want to let that hold up anything. Other than that, I don't know if I have any other questions or comments for you on the staff report. I do just want to remind this body that, you know, when it comes to our meetings, we know every week, every 2 weeks when these are, and that if you know you're going to be absent, please do reach out to Mr. Kucera or myself as soon as you know, so we can try and make this as seamless and efficient for the applicant as possible, because, you know, they do have timelines with contractors and getting supplies. So just try and remember that as these meetings are coming up. And if you know you're not going to make it, try and let us know by like Monday at noon. That would be, I would say, a good benchmark to aim for. Obviously, emergencies happen, but just try and keep that in mind as the weekend progresses before a planning commission meeting. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple questions. One, I think, did you guys just have that conference And were there any takeaways? Was that the 27th?
That was today, and Mr. Tindlin and I actually left early, and I will bounce
okay.
it to him if he wants to.
I'm just curious if there's any
Sure.
takeaways or thing.
One, I guess if you're a new planning commissioner within a year or so, highly recommend you go, because they actually talked about the master plan development. They talked about how to do it, the best practices. There are a lot of Oakland County contacts I never knew about as well. So I would encourage any of the newer commissioners to take a course like that.
So I will add that I don't know when their next in-person one would be. I imagine they do these maybe once a quarter, once every couple months. But I imagine that they do have some virtual options that once I see those come out, I will be more than happy to share that and would really encourage you all to attend.
And then the other one was, I know the DDA just had their open house for their master plan. And there was some questions around like building height and other relevant topics that, are you gonna have a report or anything finalized maybe that they could share with us?
Well, the DDA master plan will be coming in front of you either way. I'm not sure on their timeline. I don't know if Joe has an update on that.
Okay.
But they'll have all of that.
Similar timeline.
Yeah. I imagine it'll probably be presented as an entire proposal. That way we can just kind of keep everything together.
Okay.
And then when it comes to that workshop for the draft master plan, kind of like we've been saying from the start, ideally we have that scheduled for 6 p.m. on a day that we have a planning commission meeting. That way we can bundle it all together and it doesn't get in the way of any regular business.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And do you have any idea what the attendance was on that DDA?
I don't have an exact number, but I believe I heard roughly 25 people, which was an increase from the last few years. So more turnout, more responses, more feedback.
Good.
Nick, from a project update perspective, I was curious, is there a place where we can direct folks or even for ourselves to see what's going on with respect to the infrastructure projects? And I ask because the last time I checked on Facebook, there were a lot of questions about some of the paint markings from utility locates. And I interpret it as utility locates just from my own background, but I know it's usually a signal of some progress, whether in design or in anticipation of construction. And, the questions are asked, but is there a place for the public, for residents to kind of go and look for it?
At this present moment, no. It's kind of something we're working on right now as we're preparing that CIP-related infrastructure, and that pending the ballot initiative in November is kind of when we'd roll some of that out and have more of a timeline presented to the public on our website. So we've gotten a lot of questions recently. There's been a lot of those utility companies having their lines marked. And so today we just posted a general educational piece on social media, kind of trying to explain what each flag represents. Most of those utility companies that are doing work will have to pull right-of-way permits with our DPW unless it's for an emergency type of gas leak or water main break. But most of the time they're pulling permits for work, but it's the ones that I believe you might be referring to are not related towards city infrastructure at this time.
Okay, so they're being performed by the utility companies themselves?
I believe so, just because I don't know exactly where you're talking about.
Right.
But I believe it's mostly just the utility companies at this time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anything else for Nick? Nope. Okay, there will be no legal update because we don't have a lawyer tonight. And unless somebody else has anything that they'd like to comment on, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Support?
Motion support. Roll call, please.
All right, Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Solomon,
Yes.
Mr. Tindlin,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter, Mr. Fitzer,
Yes.
Mr. Kucera,
Yes.
Mr. Nushai.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion adjourned at 8:04. Short meeting.